Everyone, it's Charlton, and there is I first was introduced to this story about 3 weeks ago of the Smallville actress Allison Mack and her involvement in this self-help group Nxivm. I think that's what you call it. And I'm live streaming on Periscope as I make this video. I'll try not to, because there's a ton of information here. So the founder of this group, Keith Raniere, and let me just show you a picture of, I'm sure the people who are watching this know who Allison Mack is, even though I barely knew her. Okay, she's an actress on the show Smallville, which I don't watch, but she also was on the show Wilfred, which I did used to watch. She used to be the girlfriend of the guy who was in Lord of the Rings. So, and the guy who was arrested like 3 weeks ago in Mexico, his name is Keith Raniere, is pictured right there, and he's the leader of this like self-help group, like cult-like movement, okay? And he had to sort of flee to Mexico when the New York Times reported a story about him branding some of his members, like literally branding with like, a hot iron thing. And so he moved his movement to Mexico, and they, authorities more or less chased him down there. And the Mexican authorities arrested him like 3 weeks ago. And in that incident, Allison Mack became part of the story, because in the Daily Mail, there was this little video clip of her sort of, and some of his followers, like getting in a vehicle and chasing or following the Mexican authorities as they had arrested him and were about to take him back to, wherever their headquarters. And eventually he was extradited to the United States, I think in Corpus Christi, Texas, I believe is where they brought him to face charges, even though he's from Albany, upstate New York. And so I don't know, his charges are in multiple jurisdictions, and I think they're federal in nature, and I think her charges were federal. And when you read, it's not exactly clear. According to the People magazine article here, he was charged with sex trafficking. And according to this, they're a little loose with the language, but I think she's being arrested on suspicion of sex trafficking in connection with his group. And when you read through the language in the court documents that's provided in the New York Daily News, it's intense. She's in big trouble, man. And I assume that, and why she would do this, she's 35 years old. She's obviously got a very successful career, but people, these cult-like things, you lose your mind, and they've been brainwashed and stuff like that. But the language in the New York Daily News, and that's taken from court documents, are very damning against her. And I assume federal authorities are looking to apply pressure on her to turn her on him, and just kind of set this domino effect off to turn all these members against this guy, as they should probably. I think he's obviously bad. These cult situations are always bad. And and there's a lot of other. There's another, a former cast member of Dynasty, her name, and she was in the, and I'll play the video of them in Mexico in a second with the Allison Mack clip in it. But just to give you some background, there's a, what's her name? Catherine Oxenberg, and I don't remember her, but she's a celebrity, and she was on Dynasty. Her daughter fell prey to this, and she's been actively pursuing, trying to expose this group, that have turned these women into like sex slaves. It's really bad, Let me play the video of Allison Mack in Mexico, and then I'll read the New York Daily News stuff, and then I'll just wrap it up there. So here it is, and that's a picture of him in Mexico being arrested, where he's sporting a little bit of a beard and glasses. And this is Allison Mack, where he's literally being put into a Mexican police car, and and that's about to drive away, and her and a couple other members are gonna like follow. They're like just brainwashed zombies, following their leader. Which is not very smart. Also in Mexico too, it's pretty dangerous, man. He's in that car, Keith Raniere, being arrested by Mexican police. We're gonna follow them. And I believe that right there is Allison Mack, I believe.
Huh? Lauren's coming. Lauren. Let's go, you guys.
Okay, so you know, and they were staying at some very you know, expensive resort in Mexico, like a 10,000 a week place that was obviously being financed by his you know, by the members of his group. And what, you know, it was a self-help group, and you would pay for these you know, seminars, self-help seminars, and materials and educational stuff and stuff like that. But and they cost thousands of dollars. And within this group, then there were certain members, certain female members that were initiated into this DOS. And Nxivm was the name of the self-help group, and it was the secret. I'm sorry, there's so much info here. I'm just going to... So according to the complaint, Rainier created a secret society within Nxivm called the DOS in 2015. And his self-help group has existed for like 20 years, and I think it's just gotten bigger and bigger and gotten more and more out of control. But DOS, which loosely translated to Lord Master of the Obedient Female Companions, or the Vow. And this was the women that were like branded and became sex slaves to masters, and I assume he was the main master, but I think there was other masters within the group. And then I'll get to so the DOS operated with levels of women slaves headed by masters, and most were recruited with from within Nxivm's ranks. When new DOS slaves were recruited, they were required to provide collateral, which included handing over highly damaging information about friends and family members, or nude photographs of yourself, and or rights of the recruit's assets, so that basically if they changed their mind, you know, at some other point, this would be held against them, so they could never leave the group, you know, and that was part of their initiation. Many of the slaves were branded on their pelvic area using a cauterizing pen with a symbol, which included, and a lot of the members didn't even know this, included Rainier's initials in the like the symbol that they were branded with. All right, so according to the court documents, Allison Mack, the Smallville actress, it says the 35-year-old Mack served as an aggressive recruiter of female candidates for a secret society known as DOS, what I was just talking about, led by her co-defendant and cult leader, Keith Rainier, officials said. According to court documents, Mack, who ranked just below Rainier in the cult hierarchy, required the slaves under her control to engage in sexual activity with him at their upstate base. Mack turned over naked photos of her slaves to Rainier and knew how he enjoyed sex with multiple young women, according to a detention letter filed by the feds. In a quid pro quo for serving as Rainier's pimp, Mack received financial and other benefits from the cult leader, authorities charge. And these things are heavy, man, you know. Today, we announced an additional arrest in the case that brought to life an inconceivable crime. FBI Assistant Director in charge, William Sweeney. The slaves were also required to strip naked and succumb to a ritual where each was branded near the pelvis with a symbol incorporating Rainier's initials. During those ceremonies, court papers said Mack placed her hands on the weeping slaves' chests while instructing the women to feel the pain and think of their master. Mack, if convicted on charges of sex trafficking conspiracy, and forced labor conspiracy, faces 15 years to life in prison. This is unreal, man. So the West German-born actress debuted in parts of. And then it goes into her career. And that's it, man. That's the story there. I'm sure. And she's due to appear in court in New York City later today. They said she was, you know, cuffed and arrested. There's no like footage or pictures of her being arrested, but she's due to appear in court in New York City later today, Friday. And that's it, man. All right, thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below, and I will see you in the next video. Later, man.